It's the first day of the ceasefire in the Gaza, Israel, Hamas conflict, whatever you want to call it. And I'm not going to say it's the conflict that began on October 7th, because it began a long time before that. But I'm also not going to say it's a conflict that's been going on for thousands of years, because really it's more like 100 that the actual problem has manifested. But it actually does go back quite deeply, back in the roots of religious history. You know, whether you want to call that myth or history is up to you. But anyway, I digress. That's a topic for another time. For now, what do I think about this? Well, I think this is absolutely not the work of Joe Biden, despite what he wants us to hear. I mean, yeah, it's the deal that was on the table months ago from him, supposedly floated by them, but you know, there was no pressure on Israel to take it until now. So I'm not alone in thinking that, you know, this is Trump trying to have his Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter hostage crisis moment in the 21st century, right? So he wants to come into office and be inaugurated in a couple of days and look like a big hero who instantly brought peace, just based on his, threats, strength, and whatever. Well, I mean, what we all know is that, like, the only person who's going to be more loyal to Israel than Joe Biden is Donald Trump. Oops. So why did they cave to this pressure now? Why the timing? I had a friend ask me, he goes, well, then why didn't they wait till after the inauguration to make sure, you know, that Trump got full credit? Which is a pretty fair question. Regardless, do I think it's going to last? Not really. And I think there's a couple of reasons that are kind of overlooked by most places. But I read a great article in the Financial Times today that broke this down pretty well. I like the Financial Times because they take a lot of the political bent out of it and look at things like how it affects the markets and how it affects businesses and stuff. So they tend to like really tell it like it is a little bit, although through their own lens, of course, and their own perspective. But anyway, so what they say is, okay, Israel is a parliament, right? So Netanyahu has a government established by getting a coalition of members of their the Knesset, different political parties. So he has a political coalition, like, and in his coalition are like explicitly right-wing militaristic Zionist parties. Like there's a party called the Religious Zionist Party, and that's one of his key partners that has kept him in power as far as the government. Now, because since this treaty was, or this latest deal has been going through, one of those major parties, I forget which one, if it's Smotrich or Ben Gavir's party, pulled out, leaving Netanyahu with only really 2 seats clinging to his majority, right? So if that other party leaves, the government will dissolve and there'll be a new election and there will be a new prime minister and Netanyahu will lose power. And that remaining party, I think it's the Religious Zionists, have said, look, if this goes beyond releasing a few hostages and doesn't go right back to bombing and war again, we're out, which would mean Netanyahu would be out of power, which means he would face a lot of consequences for the corruption trials he's under, not to mention the war crimes he's now formally accused of, right, from this conflict. So that means, man, this guy's back is to the wall in a way that it's never been before, or it hasn't been yet. And this is a guy whose back has been up against a lot of walls. So I don't expect to see much in the way of true peace here. But what I expect to see is an acknowledgement. Like, why would they do this for Trump? Because Trump has already promised so much to Israel, and it has given them so much, whether it was his recognition of Jerusalem as their capital, the ceding of the Golan Heights from Syria, or what he's promised to do next blatantly in exchange for a campaign contribution of hundreds of millions of dollars from one of our oligarchs, Miriam Abelson, has promised to let Israel annex the West Bank. And do I think that's a good idea? Actually, your answer might be surprising, because my answer might be surprising to you, rather, because I don't think a two-state solution is the way to go, to be honest. And a lot of Arabs I talk to, especially ones that actually live there or have lived there, feel the same way. They're like, look, Israel says they're a democracy, and those people in Gaza and in the West Bank have Israeli identification cards. They just don't have the rights of a citizen. I mean, if the West Bank were completely annexed, would that mean the Arabs there gain citizenship? Somehow I doubt it. But that in and of itself exposes the lie that Israel wants to promote, that, they're a full democracy with full respect. Everyone has equal rights. Well, almost equal rights, right? I'm not going to go into the specifics of it. You can talk about it in the comments if you want to, a little bit. But if you know much about what's going on over there, you know that, Arabs are second-class citizens. Even the citizens of Israel that are Arabs, have their own school systems, their own underfunded schools, and are restricted in where they can live and own property and all that stuff. It's very segregationist. It's something very familiar to students of history of this country. So I would annexing be good? Probably in the short term, no. In the long term, who knows? But what's the alternative? It's what is going on right now. The same thing that happened to Native Americans in this country, right in this place where I live. Like, this is all what we call in meetings unceded territory of the Wiyot people. What's unceded territory means? It means they didn't cede it. It means they didn't give it up. We took it, right? Much like the West Bank, including the village that my dad was born in, my ancestors came from, and who've been there for over 500 years, aren't giving up the territory in the West Bank anytime soon. So it's going to be unceded too. But we'll see, man. If they were to offer all existing Arabs there full citizenship in Israel, that alone would be acceptable. I mean, what really the answer would be full right of return for people like myself or anybody from indigenously from the region, including Jews, of course. But like, you have to recognize the indigeneity of Palestinian people. We are a people. I don't care what Ben Huckabee says. We're not like Smurfs or halflings or something, or hobbits or whatever. We're people. I have a history that goes far back beyond even that, but I think 500 years of my family being in one village is plenty to consider myself indigenous to that territory. Yet I have no rights to return to my, area of origin, if you will. And that stinks. That's the bottom line. It's really the hard, chewy center of racism in this whole thing. Because really, there's a big reason why I don't use the Z word very much, or if at all. That word being not zoologist, but Zionist. I don't tend to use it because I don't think, I think most people don't even know what it means. So then you automatically have to explain what that means. You got to explain the difference between cultural Zionism, political Zionism, and blah, 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 blah. And then meanwhile, to most Jews, well-meaning Jews, it's just like we want a homeland to protect ourselves in case there's trouble, which there's been trouble before. All right. I'm on board with that. Does that make me a Zionist? Because I'm on board with that as far as that goes, but give me this exact same rights, right? Give Palestinians the right to have a place to call our own as well, not just a territory being occupied by super rich people with super highways and commuting to work to Tel Aviv through poverty, streets that people aren't allowed to use based on their religion and the color of their skin. It's disgusting. A lot of people don't know this. If you knew it, if you could really see it, then maybe you can understand. And I like to think that you would be against it, like I am. So anyway, I've rambled a bit here. I'm just about done. I just wanted to say that I want peace in the region, so I'm cautiously optimistic. But I have no illusions about where Trump's loyalties lie on this issue, and nor do I have any illusions about what a guy like Benjamin Netanyahu is going to do when his back is up against the wall. Hey, if I recognize this video is a bit of a downer compared to talking about comic books, but if you liked it, hey, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Whoa. But either way, leave a comment and let me know what you think. Comments are like the lifeblood of that I have to sacrifice at the altar of the engagement algorithmic gods. So give it a like, give it a thumbs up, spread it around if you think you know somebody who'd like to hear about this, and let me know what you think in the comments. Talk to you next time.